Black Friday is live right now, 25% off all of our handmade leather goods that we make right here in the shop, so check them out below. There's a mythical Italian leather known across the world for the last 100+ years, used in the top luxury bags, bespoke footwear, and basically any high quality Italian leather good. This legendary leather is called Vachetta Leather, or if you've been saying it wrong like I have for the last 5 years, Vachetta Leather. But what is it about Vachetta Leather that makes it so special? Is it worth the hype and live up to that legendary status? What's the real difference between Vegtan and Vachetta Leather? And why do some people love this leather while others absolutely hate it? That's what we're gonna figure out. But first, am I even saying it right? Because this has a pretty unique history we'll go over in a sec. It's a French-based word. So let's see how the French say it.
Vachette.
Vachette. That sounds like I should not say that on camera. Vachette. But what's the actual difference between Vachetta leather and Vegtan? Well, Vachetta is a Vegtan leather, but not all Vegtan leathers are Vachetta. Vachetta specifically is an Italian type of Vegtan leather that does differ slightly from your classic Vegtan leathers that most people know from either the heritage boot world or especially the horse tack world. But before we go through the differences, why is it called Vachetta and why is it called Vegtan? Well, Vegtan, you probably already know, it's a very natural way of tanning leather where they take tannins derived from tree bark and other plant-derived tannins to take this flesh and convert it into leather through a natural process with those vegetable extracts, hence the name vegetable tanned leather. Vachetta, on the other hand, comes from, like I said, a French word for cattle, but it doesn't actually have that much to do with France because it's mostly an Italian heritage leather being produced mainly in Tuscany, hence the common description of Florentine Vachetta leather. And so that's why people sometimes get confused. Is it a French leather? Is it Italian leather? It's definitely Italian leather. They just took the word Vachetta and applied it to this leather. But why is it so popular? Because most people in the leather world probably recognize Vachetta, or at least the word Vachetta, from Louis Vuitton bags. They use Vachetta leather in a lot of the trim, the handles, the straps, all over the bags except for mostly the main body, which really surprised me because you'd be surprised at how many DMs we get asking, how do I remove these stains from my bag? And a lot of people express how annoyed they are at how easily it stains and how much it changes colors. But that's exactly what it's for. So what are the main 4 or 5 reasons why Vachetta leather is such a pain in the butt for Louis Vuitton owners? Like I mentioned, it has an untreated surface, so no plastic on top, no paint, no protective layers. It's just as natural of a leather as you can get. So it has all the exposed pores, all the hair follicles, because it's a full grain leather, like I mentioned, so it's not sanded down to remove any imperfections. And because it doesn't have anything on top, you can literally see every single bug bite this cow ever had, any scratch, any barbed wire scars, any amount of extra stretch in the leather shows very, very clearly. Even brands on the cow, W for Weston, I'm pretty sure. So literally anything that touches this leather immediately absorbs into it. And so if it has any kind of oil content like lotion or massage oil, engine oil, anything that has like cooking oil, any oil content at all will absorb into the leather and stain it for good. As you can see from even this pair of Pandians, where I just lightly put my foot sideways on the ground and it immediately absorbed all the grease and oil from the ground and stuck in the boot. Another big issue people have with Vachetta leather is it changes colors due to simple things like humidity. And these are Vegtan leathers, but it illustrates the point really well. It's like we haven't really worn them, we just did videos on them. One is about 1 year old, 2 years old, and 3 years old, and they're all Vegtan leather, which is similar enough to Vachetta to illustrate the point. But you can see the brand new pair is almost kind of pinkish, all the way up to a really oxidized orangey color. And that's not due to any kind of wearing or conditioner, because we didn't even really touch these boots at all. And you can see how much of a gradient it makes. Another issue people have is that it dents really, really easily. So see, I just took them a little clicker, put a couple dents in this pair of Pandians. But the problem is once you get a dent in the leather, it's really hard to get out. That's why you see it in the tooling of old school like Western tack, where you literally take tools and you're carving in and denting the leather to take a specific shape. And those imprints from tooling don't go away for decades and decades, if even ever. Another big issue people have is it's prone to being a really dry leather. And Vegtan across the board is just a really dry leather, and if you condition it, it immediately darkens it. So a lot of people just let the leather slowly dry out. They don't want to darken it, they don't want to oil it up, so it becomes really dry and really brittle and can eventually split and crack. And a couple other small ones is it is a really rigid leather because of how dry it is, and it's extremely expensive compared to really fast chrome tan leathers, because it takes anywhere from like 5 to 10 times as long to tan Vegtan compared to chrome tan. It's also more expensive because you have to buy tannins from tree bark instead of just chromium salt. And so just across the board, it's a very expensive leather. So then why would Louis Vuitton use Vachetta leather in their products? Well, there are some good sides to it that are directly related to the negatives, because all the things that we just talked about that a lot of people would consider negative are some of my favorite attributes of Vegtan and Vachetta Leather. For instance, the patina. You know, a lot of people really hate that it absorbs oils and everything, but this is just a regular Vegtan we use in our wallets, and this is a brand new Swayze wallet, and then underneath is my wallet that I've been wearing for probably about 2 years now. These used to be the exact same color. They used to have the exact same pattern all the way through, and you can see now how this wallet has slowly shaped to the shape of my cards. It holds it perfectly in there. So it's almost like a living material. And it just looks so good. That was the point I was trying to get at, is like, look at the patina on this thing. That is just, it's so shiny. You can even see those little dents that I was talking about. Like, look how cool those look. Ooh, it's so pretty. Compared to the brand new one. So you can see, like, if you wanted this color for 20 years in the handles of your bag or whatever product you have, and in a couple years it looks like this, you can see why people are like, I hate this leather. And for the heritage boot world, the leather world, that's exactly why you buy Vachetta Leather and Vegtan Leather, because it does exactly this. It tells the story of who you are and the products you use, where you use them, how they use them. Every single wallet or bag or shoe made out of the Vegtan Vachetta or Vegtan Leather will look completely unique. It's the exact same reason why you see Vegtan Leather all through the big structural parts of horse saddles for like the last 100 years. That's because it's some of the toughest leather in the world, not just for being strong and stiff. It molds to the shape of your foot. And then once it compresses, it holds that memory like we talked about with tooling. That's what makes it so special. And those features are probably a part of why Louis Vuitton initially did Vachetta Leather in the handles. But the dryness of Vegtan Leather is always an issue. It's just dry. It's significantly stiffer and harder than most leathers. And that's where we get to the difference between Vachetta Leather and regular Vegtan Leather. And like I previously said, people do not like conditioning Vegtan Leather. It's because you put any moisture into it and I swear that spit was not as dirty as that looked. I think the shoe was dirty, not my spit. You can see how much just that spit absorbed into it. And that's why people are really resistant to conditioning Vegtan Leather. But that's where you start to see the differences between these two leathers, because Vachetta Leather is not made for horses, it's not made for tack, it's not made for work boots. It's made to be softer, it's made to be more supple, it's made for more fine leather goods rather than hardy leather goods. And so because of that, they put a little more oil content into it, they tumble it a little bit more, they make it a little bit softer to wear while still holding its shape without being so dry that you have to deal with that almost, that overly stiff, almost cracking aspect of Vegtan. And keep in mind, we're just talking generally about this because there's 1,000 caveats you could throw in this, and there's a bunch of people that call certain leather Vachetta when it's not, and Vegtan leather this, and like, it's all kind of mixed up, but we're just talking generally about this. And maybe the biggest difference between regular Vegtan and Vachetta is the perfection of the hides. This, like I said, is made for high-end goods. It's made to be almost flawless as humanly possible, which is really tough for a Vegtan leather because you can't hide any of these little scars or scratches or bug bites, barbed wire scars. If this piece of leather had any of that, you would immediately see it. And so it ends up being a very expensive, exclusive leather that you can really only get from Italy because everyone else that does Vegtan does a more traditional Vegtan. And fortunately, this shoe has like 3 different types of Vegtan leather that are used in different areas and different purposes because of their strengths and weaknesses. So it's a perfect way to illustrate the differences in a functional way. So what is this shoe? Well, the brand is Koio. The style is the Primo in Vachetta Rose Anvil. They weigh this much. They retail for $395. They're made in Italy, and the way that this shoe is positioned is, this is the re-release of the very first shoe that Koio ever released back in February of 2015. And they had this goal of merging elements of the sneaker world with boots to make a unique hybrid in footwear. And now 10 years later, they've been featured in GQ, Esquire, Men's Health, and tons of other outlets. They've sold shoes across the entire world. We've collaborated with them last year to make, which I'm pretty sure we're the very first people to actually do a leather stroble board sneaker. And so they've really made a name for themselves in the industry. But in 2020, they discontinued the Primo and retired it, put it back into the vaults. For their 10-year anniversary, they decided to bring it back in 5 different colors. And they let me design my like perfect Primo. Like they just kind of were like, whatever materials you want, let's keep it under 400 bucks. Let's see, what is the ultimate version of the Primo for you? And so my thought was like, let's make the ultimate version, not just in quality materials and 3 different types of Vegtan to kind of tell this story and how they interact and the different features, but I wanted it to actually represent Koio's 10 years in business because they're known across the world for making some of the finest Italian-made sneakers and shoes and boots. And so I wanted to use the finest Italian leather, maybe the most known Italian leather that actually tells the story, that lives with you, that grows and ages and And after 10 years of use, you'll have a unique story imprinted into the shoe. So that's why we had to do it out of Vachetta and tell the whole story to really represent Koio's history in the industry, and especially in Italy. So first, let's look at this Vachetta leather that we roughly talked about it generally, but I want to go into the specifics of this because it's 1.3 to 1.5 millimeters thick. It's an Italian calf Vachetta leather, and it's tanned by one of the most famous Italian tanneries. And shout out to Koio for giving me the phonetic spellings. I probably screwed it up in every single video. It's like, we're just gonna give him the phonetic spellings. Concheria Anarita. And obviously it is a veg tan leather. It's really untreated, no top coats, but just to double check, we gotta check ourselves. We put the lighter to it to see if anything fizzled or burned off the top. It looks completely as natural as it can get. But what about the actual cut of leather? Is it actually a full grain leather like they claim? And this is actually really hard to tell because, well, they hand paint a lot of these edges across the entire shoe. So really you can only see it right here and right there. So we cut a little slit out of it, looked at the cross section, and it has plenty of that grain in it. And you can tell it's a calf skin because those fibers are a lot finer, that grain's a lot tighter, but everything points to this being a true full grain leather. But what actually stains this leather? Well, we grabbed 5 regular household products that you might end up spilling on your shoes just to see how much it actually stains these, which is really painful to do, but here are your results. So exactly like we said, it just takes stains so crazy and so much. If you're wanting this shoe to look like this for the rest of history, within 2 days it's gonna look different. Just from the moisture, just from the wearing, just from you touching it, it starts to change colors almost immediately. But that is why I love this leather. But you do have to be careful around it because if you drop a glob of ketchup on it or a little bit of engine oil, you're never getting it out. But like I said, that's not the only veg tan leather we have in this, because if you look at the lining, this looks almost exactly like the veg tan leather on the outside. And I actually don't know for sure if this is true or not. We're waiting to hear back from the tannery, but I believe this is a veg retan leather. And so what's the difference? We've gone over veg tan generally, the subsection of Vachetta leather. Now what is veg retan? Well, like I said, veg tan leather is all tan with natural tannins and different compounds derived from natural stuff, whereas chrome tan uses chromium salts to convert that flesh into leather. And then a veg retan is they initially tan it in chrome tanning, but they do all the finishing in veg tan. And what that does is it makes the leather a lot more affordable because you don't have quite as long of a process. You're mostly just finishing it in veg tan, but it also makes the leather behave differently because a veg retan acts almost more like a chrome tan, where you get a little bit more of that durability, you get a little more of that pliability, and in these really thin thicknesses, and especially where you're moving it a lot, it's almost better to have a little bit of chrome tanning in there. You could still do it completely out of veg, and we thought about it, but we wanted to keep it under that $400 price point, and now it gives us a good reason to talk about a veg retan. And it's right where it needs to be in thickness. It's 1 millimeter thick. So how do you actually tell a difference between a veg tan and a veg retan? Well, it's really, really hard. You almost have to acquire the skill to tell the difference by looking at tons and tons of leather. But the one way that I've seen that works most of the time is veg tan has a really light glow to it. You look at all these different leathers, even the leather underneath, they have a really, kind of like a bright warmth to it. Versus chrome tan, it starts blue in wet blue form. And I don't know if that's why it almost has a different look, but it almost has like a dirty look to it. You look at the cross section, it's a little bit more brown and has darker hues to it, whereas the cross section with Vachetta is really bright. It's almost pale. And if you look really close at these two leathers, you can see that difference. And so that's really the only way I can tell. So there's your second type of veg tan in the shoe to explain the differences. And really the last one I want to show you is I really think we're the very first ones to do this. I don't think anyone's ever done it, at least at scale. I'm sure there's been some handmade ones, but every sneaker out there that, well, at least I would say maybe 80% of the sneakers out there are built in a strobel stitch construction where the upper of the shoe comes down, and then instead of wrapping underneath of the insole like a board lasted sneaker or most boots, it stops right at that junction of the insole. There's a stitch that runs around the entirety of the inside of the shoe that strobel stitches those two layers together. And traditionally, actually I've got one right here because I just got done filming Vape. You can see it right there. That upper stops right where that strobel board begins. Instead of wrapping underneath like a board lasted or a boot, it stops right there at that junction. And then you can see that strobel stitch in bright yellow stitches those two layers together at that junction. And probably 80% of shoes that you've seen and worn are built this way. It's because it's really fast to do. It cuts down on material and labor. It's really flexible, it's malleable, and fairly durable, all things considered. But they usually have them in more affordable sneakers. And so somehow, nobody's proven me wrong. I still am like not 100% confident about it because it just blows my mind that nobody had ever done this before us. I was like, well, why don't we just do a strobel stitch construction, but with a leather strobel board? And the factory at Koio was like, what? Why would you do that? I don't know, like, nobody, like, why? And we're like, well, we want to combine the flexibility of a strobel stitch construction with the durability of the insole, the way that leather insoles don't stink and break in the shape of your foot while still maintaining all the best attributes of a strobel stitch construction. And they're like, okay. And those things flew off the shelves. And so when it came to the ultimate version of the Primo, I was like, we gotta do the Vegtan strobel board. And so that is exactly what you can see right there on the inside. You can see how it's the exact same method with that stitch that runs around the inside, but it's sewing leather to leather. And that sidewall stitch sews all the way to the inside. It's also glued together, so it's very redundant in how it's built. But once again, it's a Vegtan leather that's a lot more expensive than this cheap stuff that you see in most shoes. It's a lot harder to do. It's a lot slower of a process because they can't just hurry and sew it together with the strobel stitcher. I think they have to pre-punch those holes. But we've gotten lots of really good feedback about it. People really like it because it really does kind of combine the best of both worlds. And this is more of your true Vegtan. You know, not Vachetta, because if you use a Vachetta leather for the insole, not only is it too thin and too flexible, it's not tanned to support your foot. It's too soft. It's too much of a luxurious leather. It's not a hard-working like boot leather or saddle leather, and that's exactly what this type of Vegtan is and what it's used for. And so you can see why this was the perfect video to kind of explain Vachetta leather, because we have the intended use of it on the outside. We've got a veg retan with its intended use used on the lining, and then the perfect use of your classic Vegtan in the classic use in most of the boots and shoes that you see in the top end of the industry as the insole, but with the strobel stitch. So there's your three uses. Let's cut these things in half and we'll see what's on the inside, and I'll show you a little improvement we made on this and how much Vegtan there is actually in this, because there's two more pieces that I haven't shown you of true Vegtan on the inside of this that I think you guys are gonna be like, okay, for under 400 bucks, you got Vegtan that. So let's cut them in half. Okay, we got it cut in half, and if you do want a pair of these, they're super limited. Like this, that's why we didn't really do it as a traditional review, because there's only 100 of these available. So I was like, let's tell the bigger picture of Vegtan leather and why Vachetta is so different. So if you do want a pair of these, check them out below. If you missed the sale and they're sold out and you're like, this is my perfect shoe I've always wanted, just sign up for that limited edition email list link below. So if we do another drop of these, you'll be the first to know. You get early access and you won't miss out on another pair. So now let's see what's inside. Look at all that Vegtan, especially that Vegtan insole. And we made this just a little bit stiffer, a little bit thicker than we did last time, just to give a little bit more support. But the two pieces of Vegtan that we also haven't seen yet is in the heel counter and the toe puff. For under 400 bucks, you gotta admit, that's pretty impressive. You know, it's pretty rare to see Vegtan counters in anything, but a lot of times you see it in the really high-end English brands, some of the Italian brands. And I really, really wanted to do Vegtan for the toe and the heel counters, because it really kind of completes that story. Because that's really the last remaining spot where you see Vegtan in shoes and boots traditionally, is in those counters that support your foot, especially at the heel, where that Vegtan is just hard enough that it's gonna grip your heel, but it's still malleable and takes that shape and takes that memory, so it still shapes your foot without losing the structure and the support for your ankle and your heel. And that's why you see in basically every other shoe out there, it's just either rubber or celastic or nothing at all. And so this shoe is just chock full of like different types of Vegtan leather. You've got the Vachetta on the outside, you've got the Veg Retan on the inside, you've got the harder Vegtan for the strobel board, and then your classic Vegtan for your heel counter and toe counter. So your whole foot is just surrounded in Vegtan. So is Vachetta leather worth the hype? Does it live up to the legendary status? If you get the right Vachetta leather, it is. You know, you can just see it now, the difference between all the scars and the inconsistencies from a regular Vegtan and its intended purposes to the intended purpose of Vachetta, and how perfect and flawless it is, how unique it is, but while still being ridiculously natural, that it'll literally absorb your spit with if you look at. And now you should know why people love but hate Vachetta leather. And it all comes down not to what the leather is, but to what your expectations are of leather, but especially Vachetta leather, and how the brand that you're buying that Vachetta leather from applies it in their products. Because to me, doing Vachetta leather handles on Louis Vuitton bags seems like a terrible idea, unless you're really emphasizing that, oh, it breaks into your hand, it's gonna get your oils, and it's gonna be this aged patina, beautiful handle, but they don't. It's all about making those bags perfect. If you do want a pair of these, check them out below. Huge shout out to Koio. Congrats on the 10 years. It's cool that they asked me to be a part of this and try to make the ultimate version of their very first shoe. So I feel very honored. And if you do want a pair of them, there's only 100 available. Check them out below. And plus they released the other colors. It just doesn't have all the same features, all the Vegtan insole, the heel counters. So if you want all that, you gotta get this one. So thank you guys. See ya.